Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet. If you watched my video not very long ago, you'll notice that I made this outfeed table for my table saw, and it just flips up. It's just that easy. But check this out. I made a special release for it so that you can drop it down quickly and easily. So stick around, let me show you how I made that. I discovered the best thing to do, rather than trying to get lights and camera underneath the outfeed table, is to make a mock-up. And this way it actually gives me some place to do some work on some ideas, some different ideas of doing this. So the way these outfeed tables work, or the way this outfeed table works, is basically it's in the down position. You can grab it anywhere and lift it up. But when it comes to releasing it, because it's so far under and I have to reach under and push these two little tabs here up, it's a little hard to get at. So what the purpose of this is to be able to grab this like that, lift it up, hold that like that, and then you'll be able to go all the way down without having to crawl underneath it, because otherwise I've got to reach way under and find these little tabs. This way you could just stand at the back of the table and just flip that up and it's done, that quick and easy. So what this is basically, you can see it's basically kind of a wooden T-bracket, and all that I have here are some screws. So this is basically all that's pushing up on the little release buttons here, and I have made up a sort of a working model of this, and here's the finished one. So what I'll do is I'll countersink a couple of holes in here, drill some holes in here. That will go on the underside, and what I still have to do is to fasten this to the underside, and then this will go up like that. Now if you look at this, you'll notice that I've got the part that you hold on top of the release, and the reason for that is if I put it underneath, it's that much further. It becomes another inch that you have to reach for. So I'm trying to make this a little bit more convenient to release that. So the next thing I need to do is to fasten this to my T, and I need to figure out how deep I'm going to go on my, not in the model, but on the actual outfeed table. Well, and now comes the install. I've drilled the holes and I've got a couple of screws here to go in here, but I'm also going to put a little bit of glue on here, and I've decided that I'm just going to put this piece on first of all. So what I'll do, I'm going to crawl underneath here, and I've marked this. If you look carefully, you can see there's a mark there, and I'll put this under just like that, and I'm going to align that, and I'll clamp this on this side just so that it can't move, and then I'll glue and screw the underside of it from underneath, and then I'll be able to work on putting this on, and I'll be able to align that a little bit better if this is on first of all. Now I've put a couple of spring clamps on there as well, because this is not clamped down firmly, so it could move back and forth, and I don't want it to move at all. So I'm just going to go under now and put a dab of glue on there and attach that little piece. There's those two pieces, so I'll just take those underneath and mount them underneath with a little bit of glue, and that'll prevent this from moving back and forth. Okay, now that doesn't move around, it still goes up and down. Now all I need to do is fasten that crossmember piece in there, and that'll be done. And I also have the little crossmember piece, so I'm going to put that in as well. Okay, well, now the moment of truth. This is going to work. Look at that. That's perfect. Excellent. So now every time I want to release the table, I don't need to reach underneath and feel around to where those tabs are. I can just touch it there and it's down. It's just so easy. I love this. Now some of you sharp-eyed woodworkers out there had noticed that I didn't cut any mitre slots into my outfeed table on the last video, and I'm going to do that today and show you how to do that. Now, how far out you go is really dependent on a couple of things. First of all, if you're using a blade guard like I do most of the time, you'll need to go to the end of the blade guard so that you clear that. I'm also going to check my crosscut sled to make sure that it will slide far enough onto my outfeed table. Now again, with the crosscut sled, it really doesn't need to go further or too much further than the arbor. I'm going to go a little, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to go a little bit past that. So I'm going to mark that. And the first thing you'll need to do is measure where you're going to be cutting, just so that you have a reference line. You could use a steel rule, you could even use a piece of board. I have this piece of aluminum here, and I'm going to use it and just mark using that. And that'll give me a reference line that I can start working with. I've set the depth of my router bit to accommodate the depth that I need to cut down. But here's what I found out, that when I measured my bit from the edge of the router base to the inside of the bit, it turns out to be just a little over 3 inches. So what I've done, I've cut this scrap piece of wood and I've put that in there like that, and I've set this stop on this side and another one here and even one on the end. Okay, well, let's try that. I've cleaned that out. Yeah, that's perfect. That fits right in there. Okay, let's do the other side. Okay, I've cleaned all the dust off, and that one's perfect as well. That's great. Now I've got one last thing I'm going to do today on my outfeed table, and I'm not going to make you sit through it, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do and why I'm going to do it. I'm going to put a light coloring on top of this, and the reason for that is because the lightness of this outfeed table, in contrast to the dark tabletop or table saw top, my camera doesn't know what to do, so I need to balance that somehow. So the best thing to do is to darken my outfeed table, and that's why I'm doing it, so that my camera doesn't start flipping out. Now what I'm going to be using, I'm not going to use a stain, I'm going to use what's called a dye. This is a water soluble, what they call an aniline dye. And the reason I'm not putting a stain on here, typically stains are ground up earth, different colored earth, and they lay on top. They're perfect for fences because they block out a lot of UV. I don't have to worry about that inside my workshop. What I do have to worry about is if I decide that I want to put a plastic laminate on top of this, an arborite top, if I use a stain on that, the glue is not going to stick to that very well. I'm going to have to sand it off or scrape it off. But if I put a water-soluble dye on here, and I use dyes almost exclusively now, if I put a dye on here, I can put glue on top of that without any problem. So I'm just going to go ahead now and put some dye on here, and that'll be the end of the outfeed table. It will be substantially complete. Well, that's it. That's the outfeed completely done. The dye is still a little bit damp, but it'll dry off in the next hour or so. And in the meantime, I'm just going to let it go down out of the way and go on with more things. That concludes my video for today. I'm Colin Canet for WoodWorkWeb. Thanks for watching.